It is said that mockery is the sincerest form of flattery, and while this quote largely applies to humans imitating one another, it also applies to the world of pop culture, where mega-hit releases often inspire several ripoffs. In fact, there exists an entire genre known as mockumentaries that serve this exact purpose. But today, I will be focusing on one particular franchise, Predator. With the first Predator film's release in 1987, fans were intrigued by this extraterrestrial hunter species, and as this standalone release turned into a full-fledged franchise with sequels, video games, and other releases, other creators also drew inspiration from its sci-fi horror themes. This soon spawned innumerable ripoffs that shamelessly copied the original film's formula, and today I will be talking about a few of these releases that actually turned out to be awesome. Robo War, 1998. Starting off strong, the 1998 Robo War film is notably a classic in the sci-fi action genre. It was directed by Bruno Mattei and was considered to be a mix between themes of war and sci-fi elements, and the latter is what sparked conversations regarding its similarities to Predator. The plot followed Major Murphy Black as he led a team of commandos through a mysterious island, only to learn that they are being haunted by a robotic threat, Omega-1. As they make their way through the wilderness, the robot goes rogue and soon starts killing off the team members one by one. And by now, you must have figured out the parallels between Omega-1 and the Predator species. Some might say that Omega-1 directly mirrors the Predator's tendency to hunt prey, while others have been brave enough to call the entire movie a ripoff, since both take place in similar settings where special military forces soon become the monster's prey. The film takes a wild turn as one of their companions, Masker, reveals that he invented the robot, but it does not take long for Omega-1 to turn on its creator and claim his life as well. A majority of critical reviews have also started off by stating the obvious similarities, but the more I saw this film, the more I enjoyed its unique spin on the dialogue, humor, and action scenes. In fact, the final reveal where Omega-1 is revealed to be a human-machine hybrid whose brain was borrowed from one of the crewmates' old friends truly had me shocked to the core, and it even got me to accept that the film is more than a typical ripoff. Over time, Robo War has also become a cult classic in the sci-fi action genre, and I'd say that it has achieved this by taking everything that we loved in the Predator film, such as the thrills, gory scenes, violent deaths, and forest scenes, and then magnifying them. It maintains the same tense atmosphere and action as Predator, with additional moments of laughter, and even when it directly copies Predator, it puts a campy, parody spin on the scenario. While I would not go as far as to call Robo War a masterpiece in the genre, the acting, cinematic effects, and practical makeup all came together to form a neat little action package. Shocking Dark, 1989. Also known as Terminator 2 or Alienators, Shocking Dark is a 1989 Italian sci-fi release that has actually garnered a reputation as a ripoff across many franchises. Directed by Bruno Mattei and written by Claudio Fragasso, Shocking Dark was interestingly promoted as a ripoff of Cameron's The Terminator, but it would be a shame to ignore all that it had in common with Predator. The film was set in 2020 when Venice had become a dead city with a handful of scientists left behind to monitor it. However, things take a turn when these scientists disappear out of nowhere, and a search party, including soldiers and civilians, investigates the situation, only to realize that their disappearances are linked to murderous monsters. To give you a little insight into these monsters, Christopher Avran's lead character, Samuel Fuller, reacts to their existence with utter shock, and goes on to explain that they are practically made of an enzyme similar to DNA. He elaborates by explaining that they have been completely redesigned by a computer by applying cybernetics to molecular technology, in what can be considered a masterpiece in genetic engineering. While these monsters did look rather goofy in terms of appearance, they were almost as deadly as the Yautja, and their capabilities in terms of hunting down a handful of humans are strikingly similar. To make this film even more appealing, you'd be surprised to know that it is also famous for ripping off Aliens, another classic film in the sci-fi monster genre. In fact, it has direct parallels to scenes, dialogues, and even characters from Aliens. But circling back to Predator, you can consider this film to be a low-grade, goofy spin on the original. In this way, the film opens out on an intriguing note before ripping off scenes from Aliens and almost instantly jumping to elements borrowed from Terminator, all against the same backdrop as Predator. While it lacks the cinematic effects of the original, it more than makes up for it in entertainment value, with actors in monster suits passing off as genetically mutated monsters and plot points drawn from not one or two, but three sci-fi movies, creating a melting pot of chaos. DNA, 1996. While discussing films that draw inspiration from multiple other films, it would be a crime not to mention DNA, the 1996 sci-fi action film directed by William Mesa. The film follows a doctor named Ash Matley in the depths of the jungles of Borneo, whose life turns upside down when scientist Carl Wessinger approaches him with a rather twisted proposition. As it turns out, Wessinger had discovered an enzyme in a rare beetle that needed further research, and Matley briefly joins this project until Wessinger betrays the entire team and eventually abandons them in a cave. Now, Wessinger has no time to find a new team, and they even discover a fossil in the jungle, only for this new crew to worship it and even refer to it as the Balakau. As the film skips a couple of years into the future, Matley's clinic finds itself in the midst of a series of murders, and a CIA agent, Summers, then asks for his help in dissecting the crimes. They soon link it to the so-called Balakau and decide to look for Wessinger, only to discover that his compound has been abandoned, and that he had been attempting to resonate the fossil with the beetle enzymes. As they put two and two together, they realize that his experiment was aimed at creating clones of an alien creature they now know as the Balakau, but alas, it is already too late for them, as this creature escapes into the wilderness and begins haunting humans. The rest of the plot follows the crew's attempts at capturing Balakau, but it does not seem to be an easy task. This extraterrestrial creature could not be killed through conventional means, and they eventually had to use a rocket launcher and fire it directly into his mouth to get rid of him. In this way, DNA heavily lifts from Predator's central theme of invulnerable alien monsters hunting down lesser beings, and some fans have even referred to this movie as a Jurassic Park and Predator mashup. To add to this, the monster is heavily inspired by the xenomorphs in Alien, making this film a classic case study in how to extract elements from sci-fi masterpieces and replicate their formulas. Unfortunately, the film did not do well despite all the effort, but that isn't to say it faltered in execution. In fact, I found it thoroughly entertaining, and the scenes ripped from Predator only gave it more personality. The film's title is almost meta, as the plot extracts critical elements of other sci-fi films' DNA and merges them into one action-packed adventure, and I promise that you'd enjoy it thoroughly if you're in the mood for something aloof and predictable. Split Second, 1992. I'm sure you must be growing tired of the entire crazy alien monster running rampant through the jungles trope, so steering away, this next film is actually inspired by Predator 2. Released in 1992, Split Second embodies the same urban hunter angle as Predator 2, with a monster that operates from the shadows and turns humans into prey. The film was directed by Tony Malum and was set in a futuristic London, where Detective Harley Stone brazed the city's flooded state to hunt down a serial killer responsible for his partner's death. As this monster haunts him day and night, Malum's determination to exact revenge briefly goes for a toss as he comes to the chilling realization that he might be up against forces that aren't human. However, he does not let this get him down for too long, even when the monster reappears with a bang and quite literally rips people's hearts out of their bodies and takes hearty bites from them. As the monster continues to evade him, Stone finds a new partner in Dick Durkin, and they double down on this demonic creature, who apparently absorbs its victim's DNA and grows stronger with each killing. As they face the monster, Durkin even exclaims that they need to get big fucking guns. And there is an entire exchange earlier on in the movie when Thrasher and Stone list out all the weapons they have packed, including a cannon, an MP-15, a Glock 50, and an A3 assault shotgun, while Stone jokes about how he could not get a permit for a grenade launcher. These elements make the film a classic buddy cop movie with tons of action, guns, and bloody scenes, and the monster's unnatural characteristics serve as the cherry on top. With plenty of gore, shootouts, and cool character and monster designs, Split Second is a half-decent attempt at a ripoff, and I'd even say that it almost pays tribute to Predator 2's urban hunter setting. The characters are fun, and the dialogues are even funnier, especially as Stone and Durkin keep the humor going even in the face of this foreign monster. When Stone asks Durkin if he saw him, Durkin exclaims that that wasn't a him, and that it was a fucking it. And in a later instance, Durkin labels the monster as Satan, while Stone declares that Satan is in deep shit. Their banter brings the scenes to life, and with this kind of camaraderie on screen, you'd almost forget that they had a monster eagerly waiting to rip their hearts out and feast on them in typical Predator manner. Dark Breed, 1996. Directed by Richard Pepin, Dark Breed rips off the original Predator setting in addition to the monsters, as it is set in the depths of space when a top-secret Omega agency sends Captain Saxon on a mission to track down other crew members. As it turns out, these crew members had returned to Earth against orders to embark on a secret mission, and to make matters worse, they had been exposed to an alien parasite during their time away. Now here comes the real shocker. These crew members were trying to bring the parasite's eggs back to Earth, but they had been lost in space in an unfortunate accident, and Saxon was then tasked with locating them before they turned into a threat. When I first saw the film, I was blown away by how it took content from both Aliens and Predator, and many fans have even described it as every major blockbuster from the mid-90s being thrown into a blender. However, the cast does an excellent job of passing it off as an original story, and they definitely had me in awe with innumerable dangerous stunt scenes packed into the script. From car chases that start on the streets and end with characters surfing fallen satellite dishes, the first half is characterized by high-stakes action, while the latter half includes a whole lot of relationship drama and attempts to prevent an alien spore invasion on Earth. As far as Predator ripoffs go, this one does a fairly spectacular job of seeking inspiration from the source material species, while also having many standout elements of its own. AVH Alien vs. Hunter, 2007. Not to be confused with AVP Alien vs. Predator, AVH Alien vs. Hunter is a mockbuster of the original film, which is just another word for ripping off its plot while mocking it at the same time. In typical Predator film format, the film follows journalist Lee Kussler and Sheriff Joel Armstrong as they investigate a mysterious object crash that turns out to be a spaceship. Now, you would have already predicted that the spaceship must have brought an extraterrestrial threat, and that is exactly what happens as an alien with a spider body and a reptilian head emerges from the spaceship and chases the duo. While Lee makes a swift escape, Armstrong isn't so lucky, and he falls victim to the alien's attack, becoming the first of many victims, while characters such as Figgis and Freckles are also looped in to deal with this threat around the time that we are also introduced to the second villain, the Hunter. In classic Alien vs. Predator fashion, this film copies the structure of introducing the aliens before bringing the Hunter into the picture, and making the situation far more complex than the humans could have ever imagined. At this point, the humans come up with a scheme to kill an alien and steal their ray gun to target the Hunter, but this mighty predator manages to escape, and in his final moments even takes off his mask to reveal that he was a human from a similar planet. Given the popularity of the Alien and Predator franchises, it is safe to say that fans did not respond kindly to this mockumentary. Comments ranged from pointing out how the film takes exact scenes from its inspiration to how it was mind-numbing. But as a fan of mockumentaries and well-made bad movies, I personally found the experience rather entertaining. The dialogues aren't half bad either, especially when Freckles, Figgis, and Tammy get into a banter about the species' origins as an alien space hunter on a hunt, and humans being another trophy. These rather intelligent references to the nature of the Yautja, paired with the film exploring a similar theme of humans being trapped between lethal extraterrestrial forces, instantly give this one a high score on my funometer, especially when I consider just how much they have managed to pack into a production with a micro budget. Hydra, 2009. Blending the boundaries between genres such as horror, action, thriller, and classical mythology all at once, Hydra is a 2009 low-budget monster film that was written by Peter Sullivan and directed by Andrew Prendergast. The plot follows an archaeologist named Dr. Valerie Kamen and her colleague Dr. Kim as they embark on a mission to explore a volcanic island in the Mediterranean Sea. Unfortunately, a seaquake sinks their ship and every single one of their crew members except for Dr. Kamen falls victim to the ancient sea beast, the Lernaean Hydra. Sometime later, Vincent and Dixie Camden decide to organize a manhunt for filthy rich millionaires, and they even bring in some ex-convicts and give them a head start before the millionaires arrive and hunt them down. Unfortunately for them, the Lernaean Hydra has some other plans, and it devours most of them while Dr. Kamen still somehow survives and runs into the remaining survivors. survivors. The story then follows their attempts to find Hercules' magical sword to defeat the Hydra, and what intrigued me the most about the story was how it turns hunters into prey in no time. As the ex-convicts and hunters play deadly human games, the film rips off the central theme of Predator, wherein forces beyond the scope of humanity intervene and derail the trajectory of their human victims' lives. The film's setting is quite similar to the isolated environmental setup in which the Predator picks off its victims, and it also fares well with a solid plot that draws inspiration from books such as The Most Dangerous Game, and then throws in a mythological multi-headed snake monster to ramp up the hunting games. Flesh Wounds, 2011. Directed by Dan Garcia, Flesh Wounds is a 2011 sci-fi film starring Kevin Sorbo and Heather Marsden in leading roles. The story begins in a remote U.S. Army facility where a crew of scientists mysteriously disappears during an experiment run with a top-secret weapon. When Lieutenant Tyler leads an elite covert ops team to rescue them, things turn out to be far more deadly than they could have imagined. In no time, their pursuit of knowledge turns into a trap as a predator stalks their team and brings the death count to an alarming number. At this point, Tyler faces the life and death task of destroying this predator before the remaining survivors become his next victims. And I'd say this film is a proper, biblically accurate ripoff. It is set within the jungle just like the original, and the villain's cyborg-like appearance gives off the same futuristic vibe, but just on a tighter budget. The film also has some solid killing scenes and some rather interesting cinematography, making it worth watching just for the stunning visuals. The characters also have some amusing dialogues. For instance, one male soldier's entire personality is rooted in declaring everything bullshit, while Cassandra Mason's character refuses to take any crap from men, which also highlights just how well this film sticks to fail-proof cliches. It is the commitment to stick to the original and follow well-set formulas that makes Flesh Wounds a fairly refreshing watch. Even if the film can be described as Predator on army testing grounds, it does not try too hard to put a modern spin on things, but rather sticks to what works well. The Dawn Seeker, 2018. Released in 2018, The Dawn Seeker was directed by Tristan Price and was a rather futuristic spin on Predator, with a storyline that takes place in 2245. The plot begins with Earth under the threat of destruction as the sun threatens to wipe out humanity, while 5 hired mercenaries embark on a planet-saving mission to prevent it. To accomplish this, they would have to travel to an uncharted planet to procure rare minerals that would replenish the sun, but unfortunately the mission takes a startling turn when their spaceship crashes on the planet and introduces a new threat in the form of the titular monster, the Dawn Seeker. In no time, these mercenaries fight for their lives in an entirely unknown space and dodge this monster, which seems to have far more advanced capabilities than anything they have ever encountered. As they are hunted down, we see striking similarities between the Dawn Seeker's behavior and that of the OG Predator, which is reflected in the film's tagline, "A New Breed of Predator." The film takes us on a fascinating journey across space and is a solid sci-fi thriller that far exceeded all my expectations for a B-grade film. In fact, some scenes were so impressively written and well executed that I almost forgot this was even a low-budget movie, and while it can be cheesy at times, the plot unfolds at a pace that keeps me on the edge of my seat with each new revelation. The film is full of surprises and the characters are just the cherry on top of the cake. Audrey Rhodes' character, Phoenix, makes for a spectacular female lead. While most B-grade movies would not dare to put in such effort, The Dawn Seeker exceeds all expectations and then gives us some more, and if all this does not convince you to watch it, I think the biker attire, spacesuits, and high-tech monster design should do the job at catching your interest. Deadly Prey, 1987. Interestingly, this last entry on the list was released in the same year as Predator, making it rather tricky to label it as a ripoff. Deadly Prey was directed by David A. Pryor and loosely adapted from Richard Connell's novel The Most Dangerous Game, which promises a lot of action as humans become prey for others of our own species for their hunting pleasure. To add to this, Deadly Prey flips the jungle hunting formula that has been rather consistent across most entries on this list, and instead includes mercenaries who kidnap civilians and then release them into the wild to serve as live targets in training. Now, this is where it all goes wrong, as the mercenaries accidentally pick Danton, a hyper-lethal Vietnam veteran, to participate in the manhunt, and it does not take long for this seasoned warrior to flip the script on them. He soon becomes the hunter or predator in the equation and allies with another former comrade, Jack Cooper, to to eliminate the mercenaries and destroy their training camp. While this film does not have any aliens, it definitely has the same humans being prey formula, only this time the one hunting them down is another fellow human. This film is a classic example of a B-movie done well, with mullet and muscle action, cheesy dialogue, and some good old-fashioned action sequences to back the plot. While the plot has been done a million times, Deadly Prey tops them all without a doubt, with its war-inspired themes, deadly explosions, camouflage, and ambush strategies, all woven into a single story. It is simply unparalleled in terms of entertainment value, and it definitely surpassed all my expectations with its bizarre but thrilling storylines. I could almost feel the adrenaline rushing through my veins while witnessing this non-stop action, ranging from everything from knives to missile launchers, and I promise that you're in for a ride with this one. And on that note, I believe I have covered some of the most shockingly well-done Predator ripoffs, ranging from Darkbreed and Hydra to later releases such as Flesh Wounds and The Dawnseeker. While I found myself slightly amused and largely surprised by the way these films have effortlessly ripped off the Predator franchise's master formula, I would be lying if I said that I could not sit through them. In fact, some of these were so gripping that they have become unofficial spin-offs in my mind. But enough about me. I'd like to hear what you think in the comments below.